Hello and welcome back to another Lingua Carpa video. I am Carp, your personal language teacher, tutor, language person. Okay. Today, I want to deliver the super short Lingua Carpa Learn a Language guide. So here we go. First of all, welcome. Hey, check. We did that part. Very good. Acquiring versus learning. I'm not going to spend much time on it today, but I think there's a very important point to make, or a few there. So we'll do that quickly and then jump right into steps to take, like where to start, what you should be doing either to begin or to continue or to maybe improve your language learning. If you stick around until the end of the video, I will have some bonus information, some bonus content for you. So, consider that. Let's go. Acquiring versus learning. Let's do acquiring first. When you are trying to acquire a language, we are talking about actually communicating in the language or using the language to communicate. We're interacting within and using the language to interact, okay? These are probably the main factors that will distinguish it from learning, which we'll get to in a moment. And the focus here is really on the meaning. It's on the meaning of the things we're discussing. It's not on the sentences, the exact words and things that I'm using. It's about what I'm actually discussing. Communication is a two-way street. So not only is the focus in acquiring a language on what you're communicating, what you're interacting, the meaning of those things, it is about negotiating the meaning of those things, especially when you're with another speaker. If we think about this in terms of riding a bike, acquiring language would be like learning to ride a bike by practicing riding the bike, and with the goal of being able to ride the bike to go somewhere on the bike. That's the purpose. Let's compare that to learning. In learning a language, the language becomes the object of study. It is the thing that you're trying to learn on purpose. The language, the structure of the language. It is not focused on communication. It is focused on how does the language work? What things am I supposed to put where? Where do the words go? How does the grammar work? Okay, this is a grammar-focused approach, or grammar and translation. This is what a lot of people like myself would have experienced in a what many people call a traditional language learning environment, where here's your textbook, you are going to do grammar drills, you're going to do verb drills, and that way you're going to learn the language by studying it directly. But it's not about communicating, and that's really the big problem. To return to our bike metaphor, this is like talking about how to ride a bike or talking about how a bike works without actually practicing doing it. So it's like me saying, well, instead of you learning to ride a bike by getting on the seat and putting your feet on the pedals and moving it yourself or trying to, you are going to sit here and we're going to have a conversation about the parts of the bike and where you sit and where you put your feet and what happens when you move your feet, but without actually getting to ride it. So how do you start acquiring then? Well, I want you to align yourself with these steps right now. Number one here is to find materials. What does that mean to find materials? What materials am I talking about? You want to find materials that basically meet two criteria. One, you're interested in these materials. It should be some kind of topic that you care about, at least at first, because if you try to learn about something you're not even familiar with in a new language, you don't even know about in your own, good luck. And two, something you can understand in a meaningful way. If it is too difficult for you, you probably won't get anything or much out of it. And if it's way too easy, it'll just be a review of the same things that you probably already know. Let me show you a quick example. This is one page from a very short graded reader in Japanese. We'll talk about what that means in a bit. Well, if you stick around to the end, we will. And this is a book about eggs. Anyway. And for example, on this page, this is a very, very low level book. There is one word or phrase here and one picture. It says niwatori, niwatori. Guess what that means? It might be chicken. Anyway, this is a very easy book. So if I were brand new or almost brand new to Japanese, I could still read this and get some meaning out of it. It's not even a full sentence, but I am able to have a meaningful interaction with it. That's good for learning, or should I say that's good for acquisition. On the next page too, we have one more word, tamago. Tamago, guess what? That means egg. Wow, this page says tamago yudemasu. And I can see in the image, there are eggs boiling. So it doesn't take that much to connect this. If you're a brand new learner, it doesn't matter. And for somebody who's been studying a long time, obviously this is not enough. This is too easy. But the point is, maybe I like cooking or I like dishes that have eggs in them. That's why I picked this perhaps. And I'm a really beginner learner, so I need something that's very, very basic, and that's enough. So what are some things that I would recommend as materials? Well, depends on your level, depends on your preference, it depends on lots of those things, and that's something that I could talk about at depth in a different video to address what to use, maybe when, at what level, why, all that kind of stuff. But for now, let's look at many, many things that are good or can be good. Vlogs, personal favorite of mine because there's video to go with everything that's happening. You can find vlogs on so many different topics. You find something you're interested in, makes it a lot easier to watch, even if it can be difficult on the language side. Videos in general, yeah. Shows, TV shows are great. Things that you maybe are already familiar with. Rewatch a show that you know fairly well in a new language. That can be really helpful. Films, same thing as shows. Books, of course. And as you get a much higher level, you can go back to these things. You can go back to more and more difficult or more native-like vlogs and shows and films and books that are not specifically geared towards young people or geared towards learners, and you can just enjoy them. Graphic novels, again, one of my favorites because you have images and imagery to go with the things that you're reading or that are supposed to be happening. It makes it much more accessible. Podcasts, awesome, especially for people who feel like they don't have a lot of time. Excellent resource. Music is good. I think it can be very challenging sometimes because music lyrics can be a little crazy or a bit poetic or very, they can be very high level, but it is great. And if it's inspiring and interesting enough to you, if you stick to it, it's good. And of course, native speakers. If you have somebody to talk with, that's one of the best resources. Don't annoy these people, but if you know people or you are meeting people who are native speakers who are willing to help you learn, that is just about the best thing that you could have, shy of living in a country where the language you're trying to acquire is all around you. Next step is to create a realistic schedule. If you try to say, I'm really excited, I want to learn French, I'm going to put all my free time into this, and you do 6 hours a week out the gate, and maybe you even actually manage that for 2 weeks or something, that's not going to stay. That's not going to be permanent. That is a lot. And unless you have buckets of free time, that's probably just not realistic. So make something realistic. If right now you have zero language learning happening in your schedule, try like 30 minutes, maybe twice a week, or maybe 30 minutes on a weeknight and an hour on a Saturday when you have free time. Make it realistic so that you can achieve it. And then the next step is really stick to the schedule. I can't drive this point home enough. It is so important. Because the people who are going to make long-term success in a language are the people who stick with whatever they're doing in the language. It doesn't matter if I binge watch 40 hours of a French show on Netflix one week, because if that's all I do and then I fall off immediately, it's not really going to make any difference. And the person who's studying an hour and a half a week versus whatever I did, they will make it much further if they just keep doing it. So then you're going to scale up over time. That is, the better you are in a language and the more you already know, the more it's going to start to take to increase your level. So if you are an intermediate or an intermediate high or bridging into an advanced level learner in a language, you're going to need more of that language. It's not going to be enough to listen to a podcast for 15 minutes on your way to work or on your way to your school or classes or whatever, and to see growth that week. It's not going to happen. You will have to add over time, but start with small goals and build your way up. Lastly, very important to understand that your progress frankly, this is true for most things in life, but especially in language, you will feel it, that your progress is not linear. You will not feel like every time you do something in the language that you are a little bit better than last time. You'll feel that a lot, but not always. Just this morning, I was practicing reading a book in Japanese, the same book that I read last weekend. I read it last weekend for a couple hours, and I felt really good. I was like, wow, I understand so much. This morning, I went to a coffee shop, and I was trying to read the book, and I just got into a part with a lot of unknown vocab, and I felt terrible. I was like, this is my reminder that I have a lot to learn still, and I don't feel very good at right now, and I feel like I don't understand nearly as much as I should. I don't even understand as much as I did last time. That's just how this happens, because you have to be exposed to so many different things to absorb it over time. So it's not always going to feel like you're just up and up and up and up every time you study. Sometimes you'll feel like you're doing great one day and that you know absolutely nothing the next, and then it changes day to day. And that's okay, so don't let that discourage you. Okay, if you made it this far in the video, we're going to talk about some bonus stuff. And by bonus stuff, I mean how to find some good materials. These are things that I think you should search that will give you helpful or good results, materials that you can turn to. So you can search comprehensible blank, whatever your language is, comprehensible Japanese, comprehensible Spanish, comprehensible Italian. Search it on YouTube, search it on Google, whatever. I have found just a wealth of resources in multiple different languages just with that alone. Or you could add something like beginner comprehensible Japanese, something like that, whatever you're looking for. Graded readers, I mentioned these earlier, and that very, very simple book that I showed earlier, again, is a graded reader. A graded reader basically says this book is for people who, or it's either for people who are learning the language or just for children. And it'll say, you know, level 0 or level 1, level 2, and they will build up. And some of them will only have one word on a page with a picture. And then you get a bit further in, and now you have maybe one sentence per page with hopefully with a picture. And they just get more complicated as you go up the levels, an excellent way to scale up from knowing little to nothing to being able to do a lot. Lastly, I really think it's beneficial for most people to look for sites that are geared towards kids in that language. One that I really love to use for French, for example, is called Un Jour Une Actu, and this is a news site that publishes news stories for French children. So even for somebody who's a total beginner in French, who's not a native French speaker, it will be too hard at first, but it is certainly, as you've been learning for a bit, is way easier than trying to go straight to one of the major French news sites that's made for the adult native French speaking population. That's way too hard. So you're just looking for things to bridge the gap between one level and the next, and you can grow your way up. All right, that's it. That's all I got. That's the short version. I am more than likely going to go deeper into several of these different themes later on. And especially if people are asking me questions or want more advice on these points, first of all, let me know. Please leave comments. Let me know if you are wondering about stuff or you are having trouble maybe finding certain resources. I'm happy to give advice and make videos on these other topics in the future. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Au revoir.